Coming to you live in stereo from Josh's attic.
And believe it or not, no, we actually don't have a guest on the podcast today. This is actually just my real voice.
Yeah, Josh's real voice
After
is
being
back.
sick since we started recording this podcast.
Since the very beginning.
Like I told you, like, yeah, I can't catch a break. I have strep. It's like, then Josh just responds, well, have you ever had a time where God's just like, shut up for once?
Sometimes the Lord just intervenes and is like, you need to keep your trap shut for a while.
But yeah, no, I'm actually feeling 100% better. So
Let's
you might
go.
not hear random coughs during the entire episode.
No promises on that, because now it'll be my turn.
Right, yeah, exactly. So
You'll hear me turn away and cough a little bit here and there.
you know what I've noticed recently? And like, I'm kind of all for it.
Sorry.
What?
Remember what we talked about on the previous episode where, like, you start saying something, my ADHD kicks in and my mind's on a rabbit trail. Like, you were like, you know what I've noticed recently? And I was like, a million things flew through my mind. It's like unicorns, leprechauns. It's like, what do we say here?
Remember leprechauns? I mean, speaking of dating recording, St. Patty's Day's on Monday.
That's right. We're coming up on St. Patty's Day. Josh
So-
sent me a very funny reminder of is it 2016?
Yes.
St.
No,
Patrick's Day?
2006.
2006. It's been way back in the day.
Of the hood leprechaun.
Yeah, the hood. If you have no idea what we're talking about, you should just go on a deep dive down YouTube
Yes,
and watch all of the news stories
Oh,
about.
my-
It was Mobile, Alabama.
Yes.
Mobile, Alabama in 2006. There was supposedly a leprechaun sighting
Up in a tree.
It was fantastic.
yeah.
That was
But no,
one of my favorite things.
Speaking of like holidays, like quote unquote holidays and things like that.
Yeah.
But have you noticed that like people have changed how they do Christmas lights? Like they put LEDs up and they stay up and then they just change them for the different holidays.
Yeah, it's genius.
It's the best thing ever. Like there was a house when I'm driving out like towards like Marshallville. They had a huge Christmas light display and they like left it up. And then I was like, wait, that's like kind of changed for Valentine's Day. Oh wait, now it's like green and it's like
People just keep getting smarter is the problem, man.
well,
It's
yeah, like that's the thing. It's like, what is it? Like Bill Gates always said, like, I'm never going to hire like a highly motivated something. I'm going to give the project to somebody who's lazy and they're going to find the fastest and easiest way to do it. That's it though. I mean,
lazy people rule the world, baby.
right. Exactly.
I'm a big fan of laziness for the sake of invention. It's good.
So I have a hypothetical question.
Sweet.
For you.
Love those hypotheticals.
All right. So you get $10 million a year.
$10 million a year.
$10 million a year.
I'm pretty much in already.
In your bank account. No questions asked.
Okay.
But for one random day out of the 365 days, you have to spend it in prison.
Which kind of prison are we talking about? Maximum security?
It's completely random.
Oh, it's random.
And it's in through the entire world.
You just blip into a prison cell.
Yep.
One day.
24 hours.
24 hours you got to be in there.
24 hours you have to be in there. And you can basically, like, the whole prison rules don't essentially apply to you. Like, you can defend yourself and, like, there's no repercussions, anything like that.
Yeah, because if you get in trouble, it's like you're out.
Right,
at the
yeah,
end of 24 hours.
Yeah,
back to
but
normal.
then, and you can opt out of it at any time, but you have to spend 24 hours in jail for $10 million.
I'm 100% in on this. Only for the thing that I think that I could come up with, like the whole deal of like, I'm alien Jesus and I just showed up to bring you some news, from the stars or something along those lines where it's like, because if you just blip in there, like, because like you think about it, some Russian dude is sitting in a prison cell. And in Siberia or whatever, and all of a sudden you blip in beside him, and he's like, oh, "What is this?" And you're like, "The easy Vladimir,
it's Soviet Russia."
Yeah. My name is Josh. Have you heard of our podcast?
You should listen to it.
It's great.
If you get out,
it seems like you got some time on your hands. Is all I'm saying. Like,
right?
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It's our captive audience that we always joke about. But yeah, like so, I was thinking about that. I was like, well, I mean. Depending on where you get teleported to, like, I mean, if you get knocked off, you're done.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not like the magical thing where you, completely no consequences apply. Like, did I ask you about the same day for 10 years?
Yeah, the Groundhog Day. Yeah. That was
so,
on
I mean,
episode,
it's not like that where everything resets. So, like, it's completely normal.
Right. Everything's the same. You're just blipping into a prison for 24 hours and then blipping back home. And the whole deal is you got to survive the prison for that amount of time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I would do it. and I want to be fair, like for everybody that listens to this, okay, most of you know me. If you don't know me, then a little bit of insight into me is once we get to the $1,000 threshold, there's a very small list of things that I won't do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
like for me, every time you increase the amount of money, you pretty much solidify the fact that I'm gonna be game for it and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm not like super motivated by money in my day-to-day life, but I'm always the type of person like we had friends not too long ago that were just like, hey, would you eat, like they had like wet cat food. And they're like, would you eat this cat food for like $5? And I'm like, 100%. And they were like, because a bunch of them were arguing about, they're like, no way, dude, I wouldn't do that for $5, all this kind of stuff. So they kept like upping the ante for like how much would it take for people to eat it. And by the time, like by the end of it, they got to $50. And I'm like, dude, for $50, there's nothing in your house I probably wouldn't eat. You ever had dog before? I'll give it a shot for $50. Why not? Can I cook it? So.
But yeah, I thought that was.
But for $10 million to get.
Well, like I said,
one day,
if you did it 3 times, like
$30 million. Yeah, like I would do it one time and be done. Like $10 million. I'd have to cut back a little on my lifestyle, but
yeah, exactly.
But $10 million, yeah, that's more than life changing because that's. I've always said, like, if I became just a millionaire, then I would take the $1 million, put it into one of those high yield savings accounts,
and
live off the interest.
Yeah,
because the interest off of that is basically what I make in my job now. So it's like, it's like I could live the rest of my life just off of what I would gain from it.
We good. All right, so
cool.
Yeah, like I said, I thought that was pretty. Well,
that's a good question. So what was your answer though?
I would say like I would do it again. 10 million, like. $10,000 at this point, like, would be enough to be like, yeah, I'd do it.
What's your stick for like the 1 day in prison though? Like, because I said like, if I show up, I'm trying to play off some kind of like I'm the alien, like, whatever. I got beamed in.
Man,
that kind
I
of
don't
deal.
like. I would probably just kind of. I don't know. I tried to blend in just as much until I at least got the feel of it, and then I would maybe take different things from different places.
Yeah.
So like you go into like a really hardcore super max and you're like you gain all the experience from that. Then you go into like a white collar and then you're just like this hard like big dude like just trying to
all I could see when you said like take something away from it was like by the end of your stint of running these years, you know what I'm saying? It's like, and kids, over here is my collection of shivs from around the world. And stuff.
There you go.
That'd be hilarious.
You just take one. Yeah, just find one. That's my goal. Is just to find one random shiv.
Right.
The entire time I'm there.
I think the biggest gamble that you play in that whole game is just it's the gamble of which prison you're going to end up in.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like I said, you can end up in a U.S. white collar prison,
right,
or you could end up in the Gulag in Russia and
with
Siberia or whatever.
Like the Gulag, some of those like in the Asian countries, some of
the
prisons they have,
Latin American countries. Yeah. That's the biggest gamble. But I mean, for $10 million,
$10 million. I mean, take the gamble, right?
Exactly. But anyway, good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Josh.
Recognize me? No? Well, I'm Josh. I got suspended from school because of Josh.
You're going to be there with me in every way imaginable, Josh.
Josh is truly in a trance, yes.
I went to high school with Josh, and I can tell you right now, he's a terrific kisser.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Josh, these are people's jobs we're talking about, Josh.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Josh walking in the door wasn't even close.
Josh, you are a muffin-snuggling pirate puncher.
Josh is a good guy. We can talk to him.
Please welcome Joshua. Josh.
All right, dude, I've been kind of teasing you with this for a little bit of time, just like in our personal conversations. So I think I might have mentioned it on here one time, but I've asked you before, have you ever heard of the Missouri cheese caves?
No. And after you've mentioned it, like I might have seen something like on TikTok or something like that, but like I don't know.
Okay, so this is one that we've kind of got to go on a little bit of a journey before we get to the cheese caves, which kind of makes it a little bit better in my opinion.
My gut instinct says it has to be Swiss.
No.
Because of the caves and the holes?
Yeah, I see what you're doing there. But no, it's even better than that.
Okay.
So as we jump into this, I'm going to start way back in the 1970s.
Okay.
So in the 1970s, there was a drastic shortage that began to plague the United States and it was a dairy shortage, right?
Really?
Yeah. So it's actually kind of funny kind of thinking back on our conversation about the butter and stuff, right? Because yeah, you can hear Josh's
audio
energy
text.
drink fizzing. That's funny. So, like, because we talked about the butter stuff and
Right,
how,
yeah, the
like,
East Coast beef and West Coast beef.
all
And,
those kinds of things.
Yep.
And so, yeah, when we get into the 70s, there's this dramatic dairy shortage that begins to plague the U.S. So, Jimmy Carter was president at the time. So Jimmy decides to do as politicians always do, right? And instead of letting things work themselves out and level back out the way they he began to pour money into the dairy industry so that the production would increase, right? Because like basically what he's seeing is there's staple items in our diets in the United States.
Right.
Like dairy is a huge one.
Right.
He sees it as on the decline and they've got this shortage going on. So he's like, okay, let's throw money at it the way the government does.
Yeah, exactly. Throw money at it. It's going to fix itself.
We're going to throw a ton of money at it, and it's going to help to increase their production. So his goal was for the 30% inflation on dairy products to go down because it's supply and demand, right? Supply is down, so the prices were going up. The American people were suffering because of it, and so he's like, we got to fix this. Throw some money at it.
So give the farmers subsidies and things like that.
Exactly.
To minimize.
In light of what Jimmy wanted to do, as it does, the government, and I want you to hear this number because this is ridiculous. The government gave over $2 billion with a B dollars to the dairy industry. Now, the thing I want you to catch about that is that this is $2 billion in 1970.
Did you do a calculator?
I did a calculator.
Inflation calculator?
In today's money, that is 16.3
Shut up.
billion with a B dollars. So
A $14 billion increase since 1970?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Inflation, dude, they've been rocking us for a while.
Guys, we need to do better.
Like the U.S. government, hear us out. There's a better
better.
way. Yeah. The problem with this plan that Jimmy Carter put together and that the government getting involved, as it always is.
The $2 billion, is that the problem?
In case you guys couldn't tell, we're not huge fans of the way the government runs things.
Not at all.
So the problem with the plan is that the dairy industry wasn't ready for a $2 billion injection into their stuff.
What are they feeding the money to the cows? Like, I don't understand.
Right,
Like,
yeah. It's like, come on over here, Betsy. I got some hundreds for you. So what happened is that actually the $2 billion basically just primed them for overproduction.
right, yeah, exactly.
So they went from like, it's like we probably could have just handed out a few $1 million and it would have boosted the farmers to where
Right.
they needed to be and dairy production would have caught up and stuff. Instead, they throw $2 billion into the mix. And now the farmers are like, oh, you want dairy?
we got
We
you.
got dairy, bro. We got it for days. So the farmers went wild with dairy production and in every way that you could possibly imagine
As they should.
because the money was available, right? And
Yeah.
everybody wants those subsidies and all that kind of stuff. So as you can imagine, this means that all of a sudden there is a crap ton of cheese being produced out of all the production of all these dairy products.
Right.
So on top of, like, as though, giving them $2 billion wasn't enough and creating this surplus of cheese wasn't enough, Jimmy Carter then decided that whatever cheese was not sold on the market, like regular, I almost said the regular way the cheese is sold, but whatever cheese wasn't sold on the market would therefore be purchased by, guess who?
The government.
The government, to keep prices low for the American consumer, which, you almost want to always kind of go grab these guys and go, listen, I don't know if you know how taxes work, but if you're the government and you give $2 billion to increase dairy products and then you turn around and are buying the excess cheese, that $2 billion plus as it grows
You're spending
is money that the American people have to pay back anyways. And
Right.
so it's kind of like, yeah, you're not super helping us out there, bud. So anyways, that's what he begins to do. He begins to purchase all of this cheese. The U.S. government starts stockpiling the cheese as they're purchasing it. And by 1980, so 10 years later, the United States government had bought, I want you to hear this, had bought over 500 million pounds of cheese. my immediate thought is like, I'm never going to use the bathroom again.
Right.
You know, that type of thing. But and it wasn't until this point, so in 1980, that someone started asking the question of, what are we going to do with all this cheddar? You know what I'm saying? Like, literally, like, what are we going to do with all this cheese? The first solution that they came up with was to package the cheese into blocks for distribution.
Government cheese.
Right. You may have already guessed it, but that's government cheese. So the Reagan administration distributed about 60 million. I'm gonna repeat these numbers because it gets crazier and crazier as we go along. The Reagan administration, which I love Ronald Reagan, man. I got a picture of him. He signed for me downstairs.
Really?
Yeah, I know. That's weird. I had a cousin of mine that was like...
Ronald Reagan?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
actor?
Yeah. No, my cousin, so Marine One, the helicopter that the president flies on, my cousin was the Marine that guarded the door for a
Really?
while and got to meet President Reagan
That's
and got
cool.
a picture signed for. Anyways, all that kind of stuff. So his administration distributed 60 million 5-pound blocks of cheese for pickup by people at food banks and community centers. If you're good at math, that's 300 million pounds of cheese that were distributed as government cheese into all these different neighborhoods and stuff. Good old Ronald was doing his part to try and deplete the cheese stockpile, right? Like he's doing what he can. Yeah, as you should
Because
be.
we shouldn't have one to begin with.
So this was only a temporary solution, though, and it did not last beyond the early 90s. So he started it in the early 80s. The government cheese program ran all the way up until the early 90s, and then it was cut off. Then we're going to jump 30 years later. In 2019, by 2019, the government found itself storing these cheese blocks in numbers greater than they had ever seen before. So remember the numbers that I told you earlier, 500 million pounds of cheese, all this stuff, right? They're storing it in greater numbers than that at this point in 2019. So this is only 6 years ago, right? That we're talking about. So the big thing that comes up is we now need a place to store all of this cheese.
Okay.
This is where
Okay.
the Missouri cheese caves come into play. In Missouri, there was a point in time where they were mining for lime in these giant caves. And in particular, there's one massive set of caves that runs underneath. Well, there's one in Kansas City and one in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay.
And when we talk about massive, you'll see in just a second, massive is an understatement for what we're talking about with the size of these caves. So they're extensive underground caves that were originally mined. They were mining for lime deposits in them. These mining operations were in full swing all the way up until the early 60s when the caves began to be converted into food storage places.
Okay.
So now
underground, cool, okay, that makes sense.
So nowadays, the caves include 3.2 million square feet. To put it into even kind of bigger numbers, if the ceilings in there are 20 foot high, which you'll hear a reason why they should be in a minute. If the ceilings are 20 foot high in this place, that's approximately 64 million cubic feet underground.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't even picture.
No. So it's like you think about, so when it says 3.2 million square feet, my house's total square footage is somewhere around 1,200 square feet.
Right.
I don't even know how to do the math.
I was just saying, how many Josh houses does it take?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, since we're doing that, you have to give me a second. But if we take...
Well, because that's one thing that I've never been able to accurately picture in my head is converting a known quantity or a known thing into something that I can't even see. So...
Yeah. So to put it in perspective...
Okay.
It would be 2,666.7 of my house.
Okay.
Total square footage of my house laid
So it's
out side by side for forever.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you just think about if you took my house and down stacked it from the levels that it is, going out that direction, say, we would probably be, in the house across the street.
Uh-huh.
And so you think about that times 2,666. It's just a massive, massive compound.
Right.
So here's the reason why they turned it into a storage facility is because these underground caves tend to stay at 36 degrees Fahrenheit year
All
round.
round, yeah.
Yeah. So they never fluctuate from that marker of degrees.
Did you say how deep these caves are?
I did not.
Okay.
So it makes for perfect food storage being at 36 degrees year
Right.
round, right? So the caves, and here's why I said the ceilings have to be at least 20 foot. The caves even have a highway system that runs through the caves that allows 18-wheelers to drive through the caves to do pickups and deliveries of the food and stuff that's down there. Now that I've told you all of that, right? So, and keep in mind that the entire cave system is not taken up by cheese, okay?
Okay. That makes me feel slightly better.
There's lots of other stuff. I'm going to tell you some numbers of the other things that are in the caves, which I found fascinating. And I'm going to tell you one of my brilliant ideas that I think the government should start tomorrow. But do you want to take a stab at how many pounds of cheese are stored in the Missouri cheese caves?
In the Missouri cheese caves. Well, they gave away, 300 million pounds.
Yeah, the government cheese, it says, at least the estimates that we saw, was 300 million pounds, right? We know that 500 million pounds, at least at one point in time, were owned by the government.
I'm going to guess.
And they told us in the previous statement that in 2019, they were stockpiling at least more than the 500 million.
1.3 billion pounds.
You're surprisingly close.
I hate that.
Yeah. You're like surprisingly close. In the latest cold storage report, the USDA shows a little less than 1.5 billion pounds of cheese.
Just cheese.
Just cheese are stored in the cheese caves.
What?
1.5 billion pounds of cheese. And it's all American cheese. It's not even like it's not
just
even
like
it's not even diversified.
It's just like Velveeta American government cheese.
American singles, like as far as I can think. But yeah, it's just American cheese that
Like
is
how-
stored down there. So here's what gets crazy about it, right? Is like, well, that's crazy enough. But besides the cheese that's stored in the caves, there's 355 million pounds of butter, 211 million pounds of pecans. I know some of you are going to get mad about me not saying pecans, but whatever. It's pecans. But there's 211 million pounds of pecans, and there's just less than 1 billion pounds of French fries. Yeah, dude, I don't even know.
Is this a stoner's fridge? Like, this is like the
Right,
most...
this is so random.
I don't understand.
But those were like the big numbers that I saw from that report, right?
But
so
why?
Yeah,
does it say why? Like, I mean, obviously the cheese is because they are just kind of going with the dumbness that they had in the 70s.
Yeah. The cheese I kind of understand in that respect, but I don't know. What's the show? Brooke and I started watching it a little bit. It's new, and it's the one that's about the government putting everybody under the mountain. Paradise.
No, I've never heard of it.
Paradise is a relatively new show. Brooke and I started watching it and stuff, and one of the things that, like, the premise of that show is that there's a catastrophe coming, and throughout most of the show, they don't tell you what it is, like what's supposed to be happening and stuff. But then, basically, the whole idea is that when the catastrophe comes, though, the government has like an entire plan set in place to move everybody underground in this mountain, and so they have this like paradise is this place that they've created,
right? Yeah,
and they like the whole sky is actually like LCD screens and stuff, and they have the sun rises and sets and all this, the kind of dystopian future.
Right. I mean, they
stuff.
kind of do something similar to that in Fallout, like where their garden and stuff is like it's artificially sky and stuff like that.
Yep. So that's like the only thing that I could think of when I was reading this is like they're preparing for some crap like that.
Oh yeah,
like they're storing all that stuff so that.
But my question is though, like, how often is this inventory cycled?
I don't know. I couldn't find any solid.
Because I mean, obviously they're cycling it because you said there's highways and stuff with transportation.
Yeah.
So like, is this like where like Velveeta is getting their cheese or Kraft or whatever?
From what it seemed like, that there's definitely like tractor trailers that are going in and out of the cheese caves and stuff all the time. And so there's definitely like a changing, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
which makes you wonder though is like, okay, so you're just taking fresh made cheese
and just throwing
putting
it
it down there to age, and then bringing out the stuff that's already of like the usable age and
Right.
stuff. So, I other than that, I don't
Well, I
know.
mean,
I
like
don't
a
understand how you store that many French fries
right, without eating them.
or without them going bad.
Well,
like,
I mean, if
somehow.
you think about it though, like if you look at a block of like Velveeta cheese that is unrefrigerated,
yeah, oh yeah.
like the shelf life is
Forever.
ridiculous.
Well, it's because most of it's plastic.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. But
turns
yeah,
out if you put plastic in your cheese, you can store it
and,
forever.
like, there's also the thing where like orchards and stuff that sell apples and stuff year round.
Yeah.
fresh apples.
Yeah. How do you manage that, right?
Most
Yeah.
of them are frozen and things like that, and it's like,
Right. So coming back around to what I said was my idea,
yeah.
the government needs to use the butter to melt down and be basically like the oil in essence to fry things in, and we need cheese fries Fridays.
Everybody just gets cheese fries.
Yeah, like every Friday if you want it, because like like okay. I'm sorry to pick on those of you out there who are lactose intolerant, but we're going to weed
But
you
grow
out.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. Just tell your stomach to man up for crying out loud.
Like, okay,
but you could get fries.
Yeah.
And everybody that wants cheese fries gets cheese fries. And if you want extra butter, well, good news.
I do have to say though, the people that lactose intolerant are probably the most like, I don't care that I'm lactose intolerant.
Oh, 100%.
like
I'll just take
I'm
this
gonna,
magic pill.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
pay for this later.
Right.
I'm still gonna eat my 45 pounds of cheese.
Or just take the lactate, you know what I'm saying? I'm down with that.
Right.
Because I'm a little bit lactose intolerant. I'll join the club, but like
technically everybody is like, there's the whole study where like humans are the only thing that drink milk past
Right.
a certain
Right.
point, and we're the only creatures
and from
that-
other animals.
From other animals. whole nother iceberg.
You know that everything else in nature is looking at us like, you bunch of freaking weirdos.
One of these days we're gonna turn that corner and just completely go off the deep
Yeah.
end of like, well, this is this, and yeah. But
Have you
anyway.
seen that meme where it's like, where it's God talking to one of the angels, and the angel comes up to him and he's like,
They're making milk
he's like,
from
yeah,
almonds.
he's like, they're making milk from almonds, and God's like, I gave them like 12 different animals that produce milk.
They don't want that. They don't want that kind of milk.
And you know that's how God is with us. Like Jesus was sarcastic. I like
Yeah.
that God
Oh,
there
yeah.
just going like,
Yeah,
gosh,
exactly.
we should have just ended it at the flood.
Like just yeah.
They're a bunch
Yeah.
of morons. But anyways, so yeah, that is the Missouri Cheese Caves. If anybody from the government is listening, we even if you're listening in illegally on us, we want cheese fry Fridays.
Yes.
If you guys don't bring that about, we will riot. We will go to the Missouri Cheese Caves and steal all the cheese
Yes.
fries we can.
We will become cheese robbers.
Don't make us do it. Yes. All right, so let's take a pause for just a second and mention our sponsor. The Salt Collective exists to help small businesses and nonprofits to continue to promote their stuff online, to be able to run their business in a more efficient and effective way. And they offer a lot of different services to be able to come alongside small businesses and nonprofits to be able to help them out. And one of the cool things that they do is they partner those small businesses with the nonprofits. And so as a small business, when you sign on to use the Salt Collective, you then get to help pick one of the nonprofits that they're working with to be able to support them through what you're paying the Salt Collective to come on and do the work for you. We love what they do and love how they work with small businesses. We've mentioned several in the past. Pioneer Cattle, Silver Creek Repair here in Wadsworth, Ohio. Both of those are small businesses that use the Salt Collective, and the Salt Collective helps out with places like Marianne's Closet, which is a nonprofit here in our town as well. And so they are slowly growing their business and would love to talk with you about how they could help your small business or nonprofit in the future. So if you'll take the opportunity to go to remainsalty.com, again, that's remainsalty.com, or you can check them out on Facebook by searching for the Salt Collective.
So go check out our friends at the Salt Collective. Tell them that you heard that from us. So kind of picking up from the last episode, we're taking a little bit of a turn from like the world's largest in Ohio.
Yep.
So we talked about the balloons, which was a really fun thing. But I was looking
That
up.
balloon story was wild. We did not get a chance to watch that documentary.
Yes,
so we'll have
but
to
hopefully we will. But anyway, so I was looking up different things. I have a few different things, but I found 13 weird Ohio laws that are still on the books,
sick.
I wanted to
love these.
Okay, so number one. All right, so in Cleveland, It is illegal to catch mice without a hunting license.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, to catch them by any means? Like,
Yes.
Like I can't set a mouse trap in my house?
Right. Exactly.
That's
so you have to have a
crazy.
hunting license to catch a mouse in Cleveland.
That's really funny.
So in Columbus, did you know it is illegal for stores to sell cornflakes on Sundays?
To sell cornflakes on Sundays?
Yes. Cornflakes.
Okay.
Like cornflakes. Frosted Flakes, fine.
Now, see, that's the kind of law that I want to know. What's the story behind
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Like, why is that a thing?
Yeah. And it's really funny because, like, I mean, there's a lot of, like, Southern Baptist adjacent churches that, like, still do, like, Sunday potlucks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of cheesy potatoes that are not getting made because you're not allowed to.
I was gonna say, that was all because like some dude that was in a Baptist church was like in charge of something in the government, and he was like, I am so sick and tired of these stinking potatoes.
Right.
They keep putting these stinking cornflakes on top of. We're banning it.
Right.
Done with that mess. That's hilarious.
So in North Canton, which closer to here,
Yeah.
it is illegal to roller skate without notifying the police.
That's hilarious too.
Just to go, but then
But it's without notifying the police,
Right.
Which is like,
like, do you have to get like pull a permit to roller skate?
right? Or you're just calling them up. You're like, hello, is this the police station? I'm just giving you guys a heads up. I'm
going
gonna be
roller
rollerblading today. So if you want to just warn the town, right?
Right.
They go over the loudspeakers like we have here, and it's like, this
Did you-
is a warning. Someone will be roller skating today.
Right.
That'd be hilarious.
In Fairview Park, it is illegal to honk your horn excessively. Define excessively.
Some of these laws we need to test too.
It doesn't say aggressively. It just says excessively. So, like, what if you do like one loud honk every minute? Is that excessive?
That's a good question.
I would say, like, if you're laying on the horn for that entire time, one, your horn's gonna break. Two,
Yeah, it will.
two, like, I mean, I would consider that a little bit excessive, but
Yeah, this brings up some very interesting questions for me.
right, yeah.
Some questions that I feel like I want to test.
Oh yeah, like these are
Find out.
like, yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like,
You said that was in Fairview? Is
Fairview Park.
Okay.
In Toledo.
I'm going to make a phone call to the Fairview Park Police Department.
Just be like, hey.
I'll record it for you guys just so we can all
So-
listen in and stuff like that and be like, so what would you guys define as excessive honking?
All right. In Toledo, now this is one I kind of want to I kind of want to test. It is illegal to throw a snake at anybody.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
But like
That
again,
story again is one
I
that
want
needs to
the
be
story
told.
behind
Yeah,
that. I want the story
100%.
behind that.
Some dude's out there, he just snatches up a snake and starts yeeting it at people. Who died because of that? Is
Yeah.
the better question. Some venomous snake is flung through the air. You're the one that's on the receiving end of it.
Like,
Yeah. And they're like, well, now we got to make a law.
yeah, way to go, Dave.
Yeah. Jeez. Thanks, Dave.
And this is one that you'll find funny because may or may not be guilty of it. In the state of Ohio, it is illegal to kill a housefly within 160 feet of a church without a license.
No, we're not within 160 feet of the church. I know that much.
Oh, I guess yeah, because that one
It's
is,
further
is
than that
a little bit
away,
further away.
but yeah, dangerously close though.
Right?
I kind of would have been proud about that.
What?
breaking the law.
What are you in for? Killed a housefly next to a church.
Oh, not just killed a housefly. I killed like 60 of them. That thing right there.
You killed the house of flies.
Yeah, that's right.
It was an entire album. That's a deep cut if anybody can
That's
pick
a
up.
super deep cut. It took me a second to catch that one.
In Canton, electric fences are banned,
Nice.
which I mean makes sense because it's a city.
Yeah.
Like it's not like there's not a lot of. I mean there is some agricultural area in Canton, but not like Canton proper.
Were you with us when we went out to Bauman Orchards? Like
where I live?
Maybe last year or the year before?
No, I mean
It was like us and the Murphys and the Francises. We all
no.
went out there. So they have like a little electric fence
with
around
the
the
goats,
goat pen. Yeah. And so naturally all the dads are like, there's a lot of kids around that thing. I wonder if that fence is on. And they're like, yeah. So I
Just
go,
like-
I'm the one because I'm like, I grew up on a farm with like a cattle fence
Right.
and stuff. So I'm like, I go over there and I'm like, tap, nothing. So finally, I'm like, no, it's not on. Wrap my hand around it, and that
It was.
hit me, and it was like, yeah, heart palpitations, the whole 9 yards. Love a good electric fence. I got some stories about that later on too.
In Canton, again, it is a misdemeanor to play any game in a public park without the superintendent's permission. I don't know what superintendent, but I'm wondering if it's like the school playground.
It is illegal to play any game in a park without the superintendent's permission. Well, I'm gonna make a phone call to which city was it?
Canton.
Canton. I'm gonna make a phone call to the Canton School District superintendent and be like, "Listen, I need permission to play a game in the park." See what he says. That guy's gonna be like, "What are you talking about, dude?"
I wanna play, can I play Monopoly?
Yeah.
Jenga.
Hey, we were thinking about getting together a big Uno tournament. You in? You want to come play with us?
Number 9, in Lima, it is any map that does not have Lima clearly stated on the map cannot be sold.
Wow, that's some pride there.
Right.
Lima, by the way.
That's Peru. In Oxford, it is illegal to drive around the town square more than 100 times in a single session.
I need that story too. My gosh, man, these are some good ones.
But here's the thing.
100 times.
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
1, what is the story behind this? 2, what qualifies it as a session? So if I go around 99 times and park,
Go get a burger, come back.
or no, just park my
Just
car.
park your car, yeah.
And then can I do 99 again and park? This is the questions we need answered and the hypothesis we have to test.
Can you, somebody, me and you out there in our
I'll
cars.
just do a lap count. Just be standing on the corner with a lap counter.
No. Me and you are both in our cars, right? And we get out there, pull our cars up to like equal with each other, and we're like, well, what town was it?
Oxford.
Welcome everybody to the Oxford 100.
The Oxford 99 and a half.
No, we're going to do the 100 because on the last lap, when you finish it, you run from the cops.
Yes.
It's like whoever stays out of the cops without being arrested for the longest is the winner. I'm down for it.
Also in Oxford, it is illegal to spit on the sidewalks.
That one seems fair.
Yeah.
Out of all these laws, that's the one that I'm kind of behind the most so far.
Okay, here we go.
spit on the sidewalk.
Another story time that we need. I need the story behind this. In Youngstown, riding on the roof of a taxi cab is not allowed.
Well, yeah, that one's both logical and needs a story.
Right? Yeah,
behind it,
exactly.
for
Well,
sure.
I mean, I'm wondering if it has ties to because Youngstown is has various ties to the mafia.
Okay,
So I'm wondering if that might be a
sure.
story behind that. But
I was thinking it was probably something related to like you remember like the early 2000s. Well, I guess it was like a little bit later than that. Maybe like the 2010s, where everybody was like really into like ghost riding their whip and stuff like that. And so there was, people were sitting on top of cars and on trunks and stuff. They still do it, but it's like a little less popular than it used to be.
Yeah.
I remember like
people were running themselves over.
I remember the car club that I used to be in. So like it was all Camaros and Firebirds. So you got a bunch of these cars that have T-tops.
Right.
Well, we'd go on trips together and stuff, and we'd be flying down the highway. I mean, you're doing 55, 60 miles an hour with the cruise control set, and guys are climbing out of their T-tops and sitting on top of their Camaros, steering with their feet. And I'm like, I look back on it, and I'm like, man, we should all be dead. And stories told of us, but we survived it. So,
all right, and last one, number 13. In McDonald, your duck may not parade down Ohio Avenue.
I'm actually disappointed now.
So your ducks cannot be in a row down Ohio Avenue in McDonald.
That's both like, again, that's another one where I want the story, but I also want to test it. You and I both get the single duck each and just like walk them down the middle of Ohio Avenue.
But it's leashed. It's fine.
Yeah, he's on a leash. I'll clean his poop up after him.
Also, I don't know. Wasn't on the list, but I think it is. It is illegal to go whaling in in Cleveland as well. I think
to go whaling.
Yes, in Lake Erie.
Are there a lot of whales in the lake up there? I don't think there's a single one. Right?
I would be surprised.
I would be too.
But yeah, so
that's
those
an
were
interesting one because I know the whole like part of the reason why I like these kinds of things with the laws and stuff like that is. Number one, like the ones you hear about, like where it's illegal to shoot a whale from your car window in California.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. I find some of those laws fascinating. I also like, so I'm from North Carolina, and there's a running joke in North Carolina for a long time now that there's still a law that's on the books in like Eastern North Carolina somewhere that you can still beat your wife as long as it's before 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning and you do it on the courthouse steps. And I'm like, there's some redneck dude that's in like a mayor position or something like that that's
We're
just
going
been
back.
holding. Yeah, he's like, woman, Sunday's coming, that kind of deal. And it's
I thought
like,
you were going to talk about like the rule of thumb.
oh no, I don't know if I know that one.
The rule of thumb, like, it was legal to beat your wife as long as you use a stick no wider than your thumb. That's
I didn't know that one
that's
either. Yeah.
one of the origins of the rule of thumb.
Oh, okay.
That's where that's
funny.
from. Well, like a lot of these rules are like those things where they just never took them off the books because they became irrelevant.
Right.
And it's just like,
because people nowadays just see it as like, well, yeah, we wouldn't do that anyways type of deal.
yeah, exactly. But
And to be clear, we don't participate in or condone the beating of wives or anything along
exactly,
those lines.
yeah.
So.
That's the one caveat that you can get from this whole
Yeah.
thing. All the other ones,
Those
maybe.
are fascinating. We should do some more segments in the future of more like crazy laws. That we find, so.
I was gonna say crazy laws, but I have there's a lot of other weird stuff that Ohio has done and is known for. So
I can only imagine.
So I got
So Josh has more weird things for Ohio and stuff like that. Well, that'll be a reoccurring segment for us every couple episodes.
I was gonna say Josh had the Ohio's world's largest. While we research the next ones, I'll supplement with some weird Ohio stuff. So
Heck yeah, love this. Okay, cool. So I've got one real quick that I want to jump into. This shouldn't take very long at all, but we talked about that AJ. There's been a bunch of you guys, and we're actually getting ready to get to your comments in a minute. But AJ had commented some different things that he was kind of hoping that we would talk about over time. And one of those things was that AJ asked, he says, are there any interesting stories behind why we don't use the same measuring system as the rest of the world? Because we brought up that whole like feet to meters and all that kind of stuff. And
right.
We're kind of talking about that a little bit. So I actually did a little bit of a deep dive just to find out, was there a good reasoning behind this? I'll give it away up front. The main reasoning behind it is just because we're Americans, and that's how we roll. But the real story behind it is this. It's for the same reason that we do everything else in America. It's time and money. So we'll go all the way back to 1776, the year that we kicked the British's butt and sent them back across the sea.
Yeah.
The U.S. Constitution was written that year to include the power to fix, and this is in quotations, to fix the standard of weights and measures, right? So the Founding Fathers saw fit to write in for us the ability for the United States government to say, this is how we're going to measure things out and stuff. And so,
which, I mean, inherently it does make sense. I mean, granted, everybody's entitled to their own way of doing things.
Absolutely, yeah. And it turns out that when you defeat the world's like leading superpower at the time, you get to do whatever you want to.
Right, exactly.
and you get pretty arrogant.
I mean, semi well deserved, but
yeah. So what ended up happening is, like 14 years later in 1790, the French metric system was being considered alongside the imperial standard system. So the imperial standard system was actually like England and everybody was following that at the time, and what we follow now,
right?
As Americans.
I mean, because obviously, like we just said, that was they were imperialists. They conquered and just drove. So they're naturally putting their
when you're
system in place.
colonizing the world and putting your stuff in place, everybody has to use what you're using. Although, like, I think most of us would say that the metric system tends to make more sense in the sense that it's easier to follow, right? Everything's by tens, hundreds, thousands, whatever it is.
Except for temperature.
Yeah, well, don't get me started on Celsius. I hate that. The French came out with the metric system. They were the ones that kind of invented that. And so in 1790, the United States was at a point where they had both the French metric system and the imperial system kind of on the table. And we're looking at them and thinking, like, all right, should we move towards the French? Should we stay with the imperial and stuff like that? Well, they decided that they were just going to stick with the imperial system for a little while and see how things kind of played out with the metric system, right? They kind of wanted to observe somebody else using it and everything. Well, France came around to the metric system later on. They didn't even adopt it right away. It came out of France, but it was just called the French metric system in the beginning. And then over time, France did take it on, but the U.S. and France both in 1790 moved away from the metric system and used imperial. So the main reasons that nowadays that we still haven't converted over to the metric system is, like I said, time and money. Over the course of the years from 1790 until most of the European nations and then the rest of the world started using the metric system, over that course of time, all of the major businesses in the United States began to flourish, and they were all using imperial units of measure, right?
Right.
So when they were making things, when they're labeling stuff, when they're advertising their products and trying to tell people this is how big it is, what you're going to be using, all that kind of stuff, everything that they were doing was imperial and was based around that. So by the time that the U.S. government was like, hey, the whole rest of the world is doing metric system stuff, maybe we should think about it. When they got to that point, all the big businesses in America were like, it's gonna cost us tremendous amounts of time and money
to convert
switch
everything
over
back.
And so we're just not going to do it, right? So the labor side of things strong-armed the government side of things into sticking with the imperial system.
Wow.
And so
that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, that's never happened anymore. We got some prime examples going on right now.
Yep.
Anyways, nowadays, most of our schools in America teach both imperial and metric, right? They
Right.
teach everything. But the powers that be in the United States continue to stick to the imperial system as a sign of America's ability to be a world leader. Basically, it's their way of saying, we're the superpower. We do what we want.
Right.
Which is fair.
I mean, well, in like you said, I mean, the metric system makes sense in some instances, and what we use makes sense for
for sure.
most everything else. And like I said, don't get me started on temperature, like, because 32 degrees feels cold.
Yeah.
100 degrees is hot.
Right.
0 degrees, okay, that's cold. 30 degrees, no, that's not hot.
Right.
Like when you're talking about
well, and so much of that is the way that we think. The reason why I prefer the Fahrenheit measuring system of temperature over the Celsius measuring is just that we have more degrees included in, so that it's easier to kind of pinpoint, right?
Right, yeah.
Because like when they say, oh, it's a really nice day outside, it's 22 degrees, and it's like, well, y'all's 22. There's a big span that it covers, right? And so like when I'm specific and I say my ideal temperature is 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right. You know exactly what.
I mean, it's dead on, right? Like it's like you get 1 degree above 68, I start sweating. You get 1 degree below, and I want a jacket. It's like there's a perfect sweet spot in there in that sense. And so, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Celsius stuff. But
what's your thoughts on the Kelvin system?
On the Kelvin system, I don't know that I've ever given any thoughts to it. Has anybody ever given any thoughts?
Not
to it?
outside of scientists. But,
yeah. So,
but yeah, well, that's cool.
Hello, scientists.
But yeah, I honestly never knew the origin of that, so that's cool.
So that's how we came to using our standards of measurements. So, final thing that we've got in this episode today that Josh and I talked about is we want to get to some of your comments. And so one of the cool things is it just happened that this episode coincides with the end of March,
right,
for us as we're recording it and stuff. And so we decided that what we want to do in order to try to keep ourselves a little bit more organized, which is out of the use for us.
Yeah, again.
But what we want to do to try to keep ourselves more organized is just do an end of the month comment recap each time. And so the last episode of each month, when we're recording it, we will sit down and read through your comments. And I'm going to say this up front. We won't be able to get to every single comment that everybody makes and stuff. It would take us a long, long time because you guys, you do an awesome job of interacting with our stuff. And
we even try to interact with every single comment.
We sure do.
As it happens and things like that. But we just want to highlight some of our favorite comments or comments that we find interesting or things like that. So again, and like if you have any input on questions or anything like that, please leave a comment and we will address them as we get them. So our first one, which was our one that just released last week of this recording, was the...
It's always a confusing
thing
to
exactly.
say.
Like, again...
we're several episodes out, so
which
when we say this...
surprising, yeah.
Don't hold us to the timelines.
So it was our bear versus gorilla debate. And overwhelmingly was the gorilla. I think we laid out very, very good arguments for
I think
both.
So. I know that we swayed the comments a little bit in our direction, but
I was one of those where I was like, man, it's hard to go against the bear, but like once you actually look at the facts, like the gorilla, like if you didn't choose the gorilla, like what are you doing?
Come on, bro.
I mean, there was one person that that chose the bear and was very confident about that.
Yeah.
And that was Noah, our good friend
Yeah.
Noah. So
Noah likes when we shout him out. I don't think he's gonna like us this time because Noah, you were the lone ranger on the
Yes,
side of the bear.
And-
Every other person said gorilla.
And I mean, well, Lynette had the Chat GPT, like who
Yeah.
would win, which I did not agree with the
No,
logic
no,
of
no.
that of Chat.
No, I
That's
didn't either.
hey, like Josh always says, don't believe anything you
that's
read on
right.
the internet.
That's right. You got to test everything.
Case in point.
So, that was good. So yeah, so we appreciate you guys. Thanks Noah for commenting. I'm happy for you to stand by yourself in the bear category if you want to do that. We also had a lot of stuff that surrounded the Frogman Festival stuff that we put up. So thank you for guys for watching the video. Thank you for checking out all the stuff that we put up for that. So we had the official Frogman Festival page, Strange Talk Radio, the author Michael Thompson, who I've got his book and I'm reading through that. The Wump Mucket Puppets. I always have to be careful saying their name.
Right.
And then Tony Breeden, who's also another author about cryptid creatures and stuff that we talked to for a while, as well as Camp Cryptid.
Yep.
Dr. Emilio Soto, Texas Ted. So many different people from that all commented on our post. They liked us, followed us and stuff. So we just want to give a shout out to them. Thank you guys so much. We had such a blast at the
Right.
Frogman Festivals. It was so much fun putting together our recaps and reading through so many of the materials and stuff that we got from you guys, checking out the card games. Josh was looking just as we got here today.
And as of this recording, I think 1 or 2 weeks, or not as of the recording, as of this release, Cryptid Camp will actually have their cards and stuff. Like their first wave of Kickstarter stuff is going to be released.
Yep.
So that will actually start being available, and then we can kind of link those once they actually come available. Because like Josh and I said, like the cards are very cool. The art is all done by hand, things like that, and copied and everything. So if you're a collector of just cards in general or things like that, it's something to check out. I showed Josh a picture of their box and stuff. It has a holographic logo that are sealed and things like that. So it's really cool.
And look at Josh doing the lead-ins to the next
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Speaking of collectors, we had a couple people comment on our post about what are the things that you collected when you were younger. And so Brody Haynes, shout out to Brody. Brody drums for our band at the church that I lead.
Little Brody.
The Haynes have been I wasn't going to say it. I'm so sorry, Brody. But the Haynes family has been good friends of ours for me and Josh for a long time.
Yeah.
But Brody said that he collects Japanese drinks. As a matter of fact, in his comment that he sent over, he said he's only ever tried one of them. He just collects the drinks.
Bottles and stuff like. I mean, a lot of them are really cool. Like, I mean,
very
Sweets and
cool
Geeks,
looking.
like, obviously has a ton of them. And shout out Sweets and Geeks because sponsor us.
I told Brody in the comments, I said, my family has gotten a bunch of them, and Sky actually loves drinking those ones that have the little pop glass ball on the top of it and stuff.
Yeah,
and I never
the
can.
name.
Yep.
The name just.
I call everything Pocky, but that's the name of the little candy things that
The
we like
sticks,
to eat.
yeah.
The chocolate sticks. So.
All right. And then, speaking of cards, Jordan McKeithen.
Yeah.
He collects Yu-Gi-Oh cards, which is another thing that kind of always gets forgotten is Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah. Shout out to Jordan. Jordan was a student of mine down in North Carolina when I was a youth pastor down there. And so he said he collects Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And Jordan, I promise you, there's stories coming from youth ministry stuff. That's one of the things we got planned in one of the upcoming episodes.
Yeah, we'll have to
be
do a
talking
whole
about
episodes of.
Yeah, because
just
we got so
youth.
many.
Oh, yeah.
Just so many. But I got some funny ones about Jordan and some of the guys from that youth group as well, so that'll be fun to dive into. But that's cool that you collected Yu-Gi-Oh cards. We had an episode that was about that I talked about, the accidental marathon runner, the woman who accidentally ran the Cleveland Marathon, thinking that she was starting out a 10K and then eventually just running the full marathon because she couldn't get a ride back to the start line.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So Joe Bodner, he comments quite a few of our things, and Joe's a good friend of mine, and he said, I've ran a marathon, but honestly the sprint to the porta potty at mile 18 felt longer than the entire race. And here's when it gets worse. He says, and just when I thought I was done, I remembered my car was parked a mile away. So technically I did 27.2 miles.
That's crazy.
Joe, that's crazy, man. I know that feeling about the getting to the porta potty because I've run some races too. Mine, like I said in the episode, I have a hard cutoff at 10 miles, so I've never gone that far. But I've done the sprint right before the start of a race to the porta potty because the nervous pregame had to get out and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So yeah.
Then following up on the butter episode, we had 2 comments from the butter episode. One was, when I worked at Apple's, I had a manager that used to go into the dairy cooler and take sticks of butter from the damaged packs, and he would unwrap them and eat them like a candy bar. And that was also Joe that commented that.
That is something there, man.
Like, I mean, I can't say that I've ever like just straight up eaten butter. Like, not that I wouldn't, because I already said that I would for the thing.
Right.
But just to not do it without being prompted, that's kind of crazy.
If nobody's like, "Oh, I dare you to eat that," or "I'll give you $1," or anything along those lines, I just walk, like, just going and getting one and eating it for the sake of having a quote unquote snack sounds crazy to me. I will say this though, super quick story on this one. When I was in high school, I went with some friends of mine to a Japanese restaurant where they cook in front of you.
Right.
And the guy comes out. He was hilarious. He's one of those ones that's like really joking, talking to you the whole time, doing all the tricks, like funny tricks and everything while he's cooking. So he's cooking our meal and stuff. And when he got done cooking the eggs for the rice, he had to scrape all that brown burnt stuff off of the grill, right? So he scrapes it all up and he goes, "I'll give $1 to anybody that eats this." Well, one of my friends, she's sitting like a couple people down from me. She's like, "Give it to me. I'll eat it for $1." Because it's just eggs, It's like just burnt eggs, basically.
Right.
So she eats it. He reaches in his wallet, gives her $1. He's like, "You earned it." And so, like, he keeps on cooking the meal. When it gets done with everything, he has, I would estimate it to be pretty close to the equivalent of a stick of butter
in the
left
little
in their buttered dish. And so it was just kind of like a ball in there. Mm-hmm. But he stuck his fork in it and jokingly goes, "I'll give $1 to anybody who eats this ball of butter."
She was like,
"No." I raised my hand. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And so he like legit, like, he hands it over to me. And so I'm holding this glob of butter. And he opens his wallet and he goes, "I just want to show you, this is legit my last $1 that I have in my wallet, but I'll give it to you if you eat that ball of butter." And I crammed it in my mouth, the whole thing at once, which was the mistake.
Right.
Because when it's squished down, it's like, I don't know if you ever...
It's got to be the worst
I don't know if you ever had that mold done at the dentist office.
Yeah.
And that stuff starts squeezing down the back of your throat and choking the life out of you. That is exactly what it was like with that glob of butter. So I'm like, I'm gagging it down, basically trying to swallow this butter and get it gone. But sure enough, like, I swallowed it, opened my mouth, and he was like, "Dude," he's like, "you earned this more than she earned $1 for the eggs. That's for sure." So that's my butter story. But.
Yeah, and then Savannah also said that the butter was a one and done maybe, but there's no way I could eat a full stick every day. So,
well, not with that attitude. That's what I told her on the thing. I was like,
right.
Come on, you got to set your mind to it.
Yeah,
Savannah.
exactly.
You can do it. We believe in you.
Right.
Your arteries might not after a few days, but we believe in you. So, our friend Lynette commented on the cuckoo clock episode when we talked about the world's largest cuckoo clock that's in Sugar Creek, Ohio. And she said that because of her dad, who loves that kind of stuff, he took her when they were younger and they got to see the cuckoo clock when it was in its original location before it was moved to Sugar Creek.
In which we've talked about. That's where I saw
that's
it.
Where you saw it
was the original one.
So you guys got a tie in there for that one.
All right, and then the Sith teams, it said that was an easy one. First place Jar Jar, second place Rey.
So we would pause there because that was one comment, which Gabe only put that comment in there to make me mad.
Which I don't understand. I mean, because if you this is going to be nerd talk. If you dive into it, there's a very, very good case that Jar Jar could have been.
No. My problem is not with Jar Jar.
It's with Rey, isn't it?
Like I got my issues with Jar Jar, and it's not so much that I don't think that he's a Sith Lord. It's more just Jar Jar himself.
Well,
right?
yeah, that's true.
Even
that
if it's a character that he's playing, he grates my nerves when I hear his voice and stuff. It's Rey. Like, just.
Rey Skywalker?
Gabe, you knew better, bro. Like, you did that just to get
did
under
it to
my...
poke
Oh,
it
he
back.
100% did.
He
was like, "Oh, I'm going to poke Josh for this one."
What was it? Was it Empo that said my taste in Batman? Yeah. Shout out to Empo. And then in all seriousness, I'd go with Qui-Gon Jinn.
That's a solid choice.
I mean, it is because he's probably the most, like, morally neutral Force user that we encounter in the movies.
And in that post we did, like, we kind of removed the caveat of the Sith part and just said any Force user that you would choose. And so Gabe going with Qui-Gon, I think that's a pretty solid choice. Yeah. So the next one on there comes from my wifey. She was also on that same post. She said it's too close to call between Hera Syndulla and Asajj Ventress. So if you don't know who either one of those are, you're going to need to do some deep dive, like checking into it and stuff. I would say between the two of them, my personal choice is going to be Ventress. I think she's awesome.
Yeah.
And after reading, she has a book that I'm never going to, The Dark Disciple. If you haven't read that one yet, you should. If you're out there and you're interested in Star Wars stuff, it's actually a really good book.
I have to wait for my Audible credits to recycle now.
The Dark Disciple is a great book that talks about Asajj Ventress, who is on the side of the Sith, on the dark side, and a Jedi that they're basically like forced to kind of team up together to try to hunt down Dooku. And the story is a great story. It's really, really
I think
good.
I
Really
know
well
like
written.
ancillary details about it.
Yeah.
And then the last one that we have is the which animal fight. You know, what
are you fighting pound for pound?
And Lynette said, "I'm still going with Emperor Penguin. I ain't scared."
I ain't scared.
Which
I love it.
Again, like they don't got no neck, but have you seen the inside of a penguin's mouth? Like that is just terror. Like with the teeth and everything, and
If I got a good pair of pants on, though, I just don't see that being a problem.
But I don't know, dude. Like,
I think the worst part is him going to be pecking at certain areas, and that might be
but still.
Yeah, but no, that's fair. Like I told Josh in the episode and stuff, I think that my biggest fear about it is we literally just yesterday, my family was watching Daily Dose of Internet and saw that clip that I was telling you about the one penguin that gets left behind and has to catch up. They're fast, dude. It just scares me. I don't know. Like I'm much more on board for the seal than I am the penguin, but that's a fair choice.
Yeah.
Too. Cool. Well, I think that's what we've got for you guys today. So as we get ready to wrap up, we'll do a really, really short version of all the things that you hear every podcast or YouTube or whatever else.
Right, yeah.
And just simply say, please go follow us, like us, comment on everything that you can, and in particular on the different podcast platforms, wherever you're listening to us at. If you can give us a 5-star or whatever the highest star rating is, and leave a comment, even if you want to leave a critique along with that rating. The higher the ratings you give us, the more likely it is we show up in algorithms and all that kind of stuff.
Right,
and, so
and it's one of those things where it's like, you know, that's might how you feel. I know I've had a couple of friends that would be like, "Hey, we love your podcast, but like this episode doesn't jive with me."
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yep.
Don't take one episode that you didn't like and leave a negative review on it with like a 1-star comment. It doesn't help. Just because you didn't like that one episode, a lot of other people might.
Right.
Just let us know what you like, and we can kind of adapt and see what sticks.
As you heard in this episode, we take things that people say and talk about them on here and stuff, and so we would love to do that if you've got some things that you're interested in.
And we have no problem calling out 1-star comments.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
If you know us, we have no problem.
So other than that, go to Facebook, go to Instagram. We're on YouTube. You can find the podcast there. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're listening right now, you know that already. But other than that, give us some good reviews, give us the likes, shares, all that good stuff, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
There's that cough.
Yeah, but at least I waited till the end of
Promised. I'm keeping it in there.
I was well. There's the outro track. That's fine.